Leo wiped down the counter at the diner, his hands sticky from spilled soda and greasy fries. At only 16, he juggled schoolwork, a part-time job, and caring for his sick mother, all while trying not to fall behind on rent or groceries. Money was tight, and every penny counted. His mother, Mrs. Carter, had been bedridden for months due to a chronic illness. Her medications were expensive, and their savings were nearly gone. Leo did everything he could to keep things afloat, but some days felt impossible. Today was one of those days. As he cleared plates from a nearby table, Leo noticed an elderly couple seated near the window. They looked tired but content, quietly chatting as they enjoyed their coffee and pie. When the waitress brought them their check, however, their expressions changed. The man pulled out a worn wallet and began counting coins onto the table. His wife looked embarrassed, whispering something under her breath. Clearly, they didn't have enough to cover the bill. Leo hesitated, torn. He knew what it felt like to struggle. He'd skipped meals before to save money for his mom's medicine. But he also knew he couldn't ignore someone in need. Walking over to the register, he handed the cashier his last $20, the money he'd planned to use for groceries later that week. "This should cover their bill," he said softly, avoiding eye contact. The elderly couple looked up, surprised and grateful. "Thank you, young man," the woman said, her voice trembling. "We won't forget this." Leo shrugged, forcing a smile. "It's no problem. Everyone deserves a warm meal." Unbeknownst to Leo, the couple weren't just ordinary people. They were secretly wealthy retirees who traveled incognito to observe human kindness. As they left the diner, the man turned to his wife. "Did you see that? That boy gave us his last bit of money. We have to do something to repay him." Little did Leo know, his simple act of kindness would lead to a visit from the couple, and a life-changing surprise. The elderly couple, Mr. and Mrs. Bennett, walked out of the diner that evening with heavy hearts and a renewed sense of hope. They had spent decades traveling the world, meeting people from all walks of life, but rarely had they encountered such genuine kindness. "He could have kept that money for himself," Mrs. Bennett said softly as they climbed into their modest rental car. "He must be struggling too, yet he gave without hesitation." Mr. Bennett nodded thoughtfully. "We've seen plenty in our travels, but this was different. That boy reminded us what it means to truly care for others." Though they appeared unassuming, dressed simply and driving an ordinary car, the Bennetts were actually multimillionaires who preferred living humbly. Their wealth allowed them to help those in need, but they often waited for moments like these, when someone's selflessness stood out so vividly that it demanded recognition. Back at the diner, Leo finished his shift feeling both proud and anxious. He knew skipping groceries would make things harder at home, but helping the couple felt right. As he walked back to his small apartment, he tried not to dwell on his own problems. Meanwhile, the Bennetts returned to their hotel room and began discussing how they could repay Leo. "We can't let him struggle any longer," Mrs. Bennett insisted. "Not after what he did for us." Mr. Bennett agreed. "Let's find out more about him tomorrow. We'll track down where he lives and see how we can help." The next morning, the Bennetts visited the diner again, casually asking the manager about Leo. "That kid?" the manager replied, nodding. "He's one of our hardest workers. Always polite, always willing to lend a hand, even though he's got his own struggles at home." When pressed further, the manager explained that Leo lived nearby with his sick mother and worked tirelessly to keep them afloat. Armed with this information, the Bennetts decided it was time to act. That afternoon, they arrived at Leo's modest apartment building. Clutching a basket of fresh groceries and an envelope filled with cash, they knocked gently on the door. Leo opened it, surprised to see the same elderly couple from the diner standing there. "Hi, Leo," Mrs. Bennett said warmly. "We came to thank you properly for your kindness yesterday." Leo blinked, confused. "You didn't have to do that. Really, it was nothing." "It wasn't nothing to us," Mr. Bennett replied firmly. "What you did reminded us of the goodness in humanity. Please, let us help you." Before Leo could protest, they handed him the basket of food and the envelope. Inside was enough money to cover his mom's medical bills for months. Tears welled up in Leo's eyes. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Mrs. Bennet said kindly. "Just keep being the amazing person you are." As the Bennets left, Leo stood frozen, overwhelmed by their generosity. Little did he know, this was only the beginning. The next few days were a whirlwind for Leo. With the groceries and money the Bennets had given him, he was able to pay his mom's overdue medical bills and stock their empty fridge for the first time in weeks. For the first time in months, there was a sense of relief in their tiny apartment. Where did all this come from? Mrs. Carter asked one evening as she watched Leo unpack the groceries. Leo hesitated, unsure how much to share. "It's a gift," he said finally, "from someone who wanted to help." His mom raised an eyebrow but didn't press further. She could see the weight lifting off her son's shoulders, and that alone made her smile. At school, Leo threw himself into his studies with renewed focus. Knowing his family's immediate needs were taken care of gave him the energy to dream again. Dreams of becoming a doctor so he could help others the way strangers had helped him. Meanwhile, the Bennets kept tabs on Leo from afar. They admired his determination and humility, realizing they wanted to do more than just ease his financial burdens. One afternoon, while visiting a local community center, Mr. Bennet struck up a conversation with a university admissions counselor. He casually mentioned Leo's story, the boy who sacrificed his last bit of money to help strangers, and asked if scholarships might be available for someone like him. "I think we can make it happen," the counselor replied thoughtfully. "If you can vouch for his character, we'll find a way to support him." Excited by the possibility, the Bennets arranged for a formal meeting with Leo. They wanted to explain their intentions, not just to repay his kindness but to invest in his future. Back at home, Leo couldn't stop thinking about the elderly couple. Who were they? Why had they gone out of their way to help him? He felt grateful, yes, but also curious. One evening, as he flipped through old textbooks, he found a note tucked inside one of them. It read, "Kindness is its own reward, but sometimes it inspires others to give back. Keep shining your light, Leo." Tears filled his eyes as he realized the depth of their gratitude. Whoever these people were, they weren't just generous, they were kindred spirits. Little did Leo know, the Bennets were preparing to change his life in ways he never imagined. A week later, the Bennets returned to Leo's apartment. This time, they came not with groceries or cash, but with an offer that would alter the course of his life forever. Leo opened the door, surprised to see them again. "Mr. and Mrs. Bennet, what brings you here? We wanted to talk to you about something important," Mr. Bennet said warmly, stepping inside. "May we sit down for a moment?" Leo nodded, gesturing toward the small living room. His mom, sitting nearby, greeted them politely before excusing herself to give them privacy. Once seated, Mrs. Bennet began. "Leo, your act of kindness at the diner touched our hearts deeply. It reminded us of the goodness in humanity and inspired us to do more." Leo shifted uncomfortably. "I just did what anyone would have done." "But not everyone does," Mr. Bennet countered gently. "That's what makes you special. Now, we want to repay your kindness, not just for what you did for us, but for the person you are." He handed Leo a folder containing detailed plans. Inside were scholarship applications, internship opportunities, and even funding for his mother's ongoing medical care. "We've spoken to several universities," Mrs. Bennet explained. "They're eager to support students like you, hardworking, compassionate, and determined to make a difference." Leo stared at the documents, overwhelmed. I don't know what to say. This is incredible. But why are you doing all this?" "Because the world needs more people like you," Mr. Bennet replied firmly. "People who understand the value of kindness, hard work, and humility. You've already shown us that you deserve every opportunity we can provide." Tears welled up in Leo's eyes. He had spent so long believing he was destined to struggle, to scrape by day after day. But now, for the first time, he dared to dream bigger. "What if I fail?" he asked softly. "You won't," Mrs. Bennet assured him with a smile. "But even if you stumble, remember this. Success isn't about perfection. It's about perseverance. And you have that in spades. As the Bennetts left that evening, Leo sat alone in the living room, clutching the folder tightly. His mind raced with possibilities. Could he really become a doctor? Could he create a better life for himself and his mom? For the first time in years, hope outweighed fear. Little did Leo know the Bennetts weren't finished yet. Their generosity would continue to shape his journey in ways he couldn't yet imagine. Over the next few months, Leo's life transformed in ways he once thought impossible. The scholarships secured by the Bennetts allowed him to enroll in a prestigious university, where he excelled in his pre-med courses. Balancing schoolwork with part-time jobs was challenging, but Leo approached every obstacle with determination and gratitude. His mom's health improved thanks to consistent medical care funded by the Bennetts' generosity. For the first time in years, she could focus on recovery without worrying about mounting bills. Their tiny apartment felt lighter, full of laughter and hope instead of stress and fear. One evening, as Leo studied at the kitchen table, his mom placed a cup of tea beside him. "You've worked so hard for this," she said softly. "I'm proud of you, sweetheart." Leo smiled, looking up from his books. "None of this would have been possible without those kind strangers. I still can't believe they did all this for us." "They saw something special in you," his mom replied. "And they were right. You're going to do amazing things." Meanwhile, the Bennetts continued to quietly support Leo from afar. They attended his high school graduation ceremony incognito, beaming with pride as he delivered a heartfelt speech about kindness and resilience. "Look at him," Mrs. Bennett whispered to her husband. "He's already inspiring others." Mr. Bennett nodded, his eyes misty. "We made the right choice helping him. He's proof that one act of kindness can create ripples far beyond what we imagine." Back at university, Leo became known for his humility and work ethic. Classmates admired how he juggled academics, jobs, and caring for his mom, while still finding time to volunteer at local clinics. "You're unstoppable," a classmate joked one day after seeing Leo tutor struggling students during his lunch break. "I'm just paying it forward," Leo replied with a grin. Though he didn't realize it yet, Leo's story had begun to inspire others. Friends and professors alike noticed his unwavering dedication to helping those in need, a trait that set him apart from his peers. Little did Leo know, the Bennetts were planning another surprise, one that would bring their journey full circle and solidify the bond they'd formed through kindness. Years passed, and Leo grew into a young man driven by purpose. He graduated at the top of his class, earned his medical degree, and began working as a resident doctor at a nearby hospital. Despite his success, he never forgot where he came from, or the elderly couple who had changed his life. One day, while volunteering at a free clinic for underserved families, Leo received an unexpected invitation. It was a letter from the Bennetts, inviting him to a special event at their home, a gathering of individuals whose lives they'd touched over the years. Curious and honored, Leo accepted the invitation. When he arrived at their sprawling estate, he was greeted warmly by Mr. and Mrs. Bennett. "Leo, it's been too long," Mrs. Bennett said, embracing him like family. "You've grown into such an incredible young man," Mr. Bennett added proudly. "We're so glad you could join us tonight." As the evening unfolded, Leo met others whose lives the Bennetts had transformed. Single mothers, struggling students, veterans rebuilding their lives, all united by gratitude and kindness. During dinner, Mr. Bennett stood up to address the group. "Each of you has inspired us in your own way," he began. "You remind us that no matter how much wealth or success we accumulate, true fulfillment comes from lifting others up." He then turned to Leo. "And you, Leo, you started it all. That night at the diner, you reminded us what really matters: compassion, humility, and selflessness. Because of you, we've dedicated ourselves to helping others, and we couldn't be prouder of the ripple effect your kindness created." The room erupted into applause as Leo blushed, humbled by the praise. After the event, the Bennetts pulled Leo aside for a private moment. "We want you to know something," Mrs. Bennett said earnestly. "You didn't just change your own life, you changed ours. You taught us to keep looking for opportunities to make a difference." Tears welled up in Leo's eyes. "Thank you for everything. I'll spend my life paying it forward, just like you did for me." It was more than gratitude, it was a promise. A promise to honor the kindness that had shaped him and to pass it on to others in need. Little did Leo know, this partnership would inspire even greater acts of generosity in the years to come. Years later, Dr. Leo Carter became a household name, not because of fame or fortune, but because of his unwavering dedication to helping others. He opened a free clinic in his hometown, offering medical care to families who couldn't afford it. Inspired by the Bennett's generosity, he also started a foundation to support struggling students pursuing careers in medicine. The ripple effects of his kindness were undeniable. Patients shared stories of how Leo's compassion had saved not just their lives, but their hope. Students spoke of how his mentorship gave them the courage to chase their dreams despite overwhelming odds. One afternoon, as Leo walked through the bustling clinic, he spotted Mr. and Mrs. Bennett sitting in the waiting area. They had aged gracefully, their smiles as warm and genuine as ever. "Dr. Carter," Mrs. Bennett teased, standing up to hug him. "We came to see how our favorite doctor is doing." Leo laughed, embracing them both. "You two are the real heroes here. None of this would have been possible without you." Mr. Bennett shook his head. "Don't give us too much credit. You're the one making the difference now. Look at everything you've built." Together, they toured the clinic, marveling at its impact on the community. Children played in the waiting room, mothers chatted quietly, and patients thanked Leo with heartfelt smiles. "This is your legacy," Mr. Bennett said proudly. "A place where kindness heals, not just bodies, but hearts." As the sun set over the clinic, Leo reflected on how far he'd come. From a struggling boy working at a diner to a respected doctor changing lives every day, his journey had been nothing short of extraordinary. Through humility, resilience, and gratitude, Leo proved that true success isn't measured by wealth or status. It's measured by the lives we touch and the light we bring to the world. And so, his story became a testament to the power of kindness, a reminder that even the smallest gestures can transform lives forever. And that's the end of the ripple of generosity. Glowing star. We hope this heartwarming story reminded you of the incredible power of kindness, gratitude, and second chances. Leo's journey shows us that even in our hardest moments, acts of compassion can open doors we never imagined and inspire others to do the same. Now, we'd love to hear from you. What did you think of the story? Did it inspire you or make you reflect on your own experiences? Where are you watching from? Are you tuning in from the US, India, the UK, or somewhere else in the world? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear about your corner of the globe. If you enjoyed this tale of generosity and transformation, don't forget to subscribe for more stories that celebrate humanity, connection, and the beauty of making a difference. Your support means the world to us and helps us continue sharing these heartfelt narratives. Lastly, drop a comment below and share. Sparkles, what was your favorite moment in the story? Sparkles, have you ever witnessed or been part of a situation where kindness changed everything? Thank you so much for joining us on this inspiring journey with Leo and the Bennetts. We're grateful for your time and enthusiasm, and we can't wait to bring you more stories that uplift, inspire, and connect us all. Red Heart, until next time, stay kind, stay hopeful, and never underestimate the ripple effect of doing what's right.